As I mentioned, this is the third hearing the subcommittee has held on the dangers of perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, the man-made toxic chemicals known by their acronym PFAS. It is the second hearing that focuses on the role of industry in the contamination of Americans' drinking water, groundwater, air, and food supplies with these chemicals. If the subcommittee's last two hearings haven't made it abundantly clear, we're dealing with a national emergency here. PFAS chemicals have been linked to serious adverse health outcomes in humans, including low fertility, birth defects, suppression of the immune system, thyroid disease, and cancer. The EPA has issued a health advisory on two of the most well-known PFAS chemicals, PFOA and PFAS, and is currently in the process of determining how these chemicals should be regulated. The current Assistant Administrator for the Office of Water at the EPA, David Ross, agreed that PFAS contamination was, quote, a national emergency. Several states have already taken steps to regulate these chemicals on their own. My point is, this is not a small or emerging or ambiguous problem. It is a full-blown crisis that our government has already acknowledged. So our goal here today is to demand accountability for this crisis. Our first witnesses are both attorneys, Lori Swanson, the former Attorney General of Minnesota, who led a massive case against the 3M company on behalf of the state of Minnesota for the company's role in damaging the environment with perfluoroalkyl chemicals, including PFAS and PFOA. After 8 years of litigation, 3M settled the case with the state of Minnesota last year for $850 million, which is the largest environmental settlement in the state's history. That money will be used to clean up the sites that have contaminated Minnesotan residents. Our second witness, Robert Bilott, did I pronounce that correctly? Bilott, excuse me. Robert Bilott was one of the first lawyers to successfully sue DuPont on behalf of people who had been exposed to PFAS chemicals and have suffered greatly as a result, losing their livelihoods, their health, and their family members. Bucky Bailey, a witness at this subcommittee's July 24th hearing, was one of the people Mr. Bilott defended. In 2017, DuPont and its spinoff company, Chemours, agreed to pay $671 million for polluting the area around a DuPont manufacturing plant in Parkersburg, West Virginia, the same plant where Bucky Bailey's mother was poisoned when she was pregnant with him. Representatives from 3M, DuPont, and Chemours are here with us today, and let me say we are not here to relitigate the cases these companies have already settled or quibble over each company's degree of liability. This subcommittee is not a court, and I am not a judge. This subcommittee is here today because we want more than legal accountability. Though legal accountability is great too, we want ethical accountability. I look forward to the first panel of witnesses, which will help us explain to the subcommittee why and how these companies got away with poisoning people for more than a half century. Because make no mistake, that is exactly what happened. The documentation is clear. As early as the 1950s, in-house scientists at 3M and DuPont began discovering that PFAS chemicals were bioaccumulative, meaning they build up in the body, justifying their nickname, forever chemicals, and toxic. And yet, despite these consensus among scientists within both companies, DuPont and 3M continue to deny the toxicity of long-chain PFAS chemicals. I want everyone in the room to really think about what it must be like to live next to a toxic waste dump with your family, your kids, that you never knew was a toxic dump. Imagine drinking and breathing toxic chemicals that you never knew were toxic because the companies who made them never told you and suppressed the research that confirmed just how toxic the chemicals were. And as we'll learn from the testimony, there's extensive documentation that confirms that this is exactly what these companies did. I'm not editorializing here, and this isn't faux outrage. I'm not being hard on these companies just for show. These are people's lives we're talking about. I hope everyone watching here today will go and read more about this issue, learn more about the extent of what has been happening over the past several decades, because what these companies have done is deeply immoral and shameful, and there's no other way to put it. So I hope we don't waste our time today on phony debates over the science. It's almost 70 years since research on the toxicity of these chemicals began. The evidence is clear and convincing. Enough is enough, and after hearing this important testimony today, the subcommittee plans on using the information learned to press these companies to admit that they know these chemicals are toxic and acknowledge their past conduct of concealing important scientific studies regarding PFAS toxicity. We will also urge them to work together with Congress to address this national emergency, which includes designating PFAS as a hazardous substance under the Superfund. I respect these companies' long and storied histories here in the United States, and I respect the fact that these companies have made products that Americans want to buy and have made Americans' lives easier. But I'm a compassionate capitalist. I don't think for one second that I won't hold these companies accountable when they screw up. And these companies with us here today have screwed up, and we need to hold them accountable for doing so. I hope the people representing those companies here today will admit their mistakes so that we can all move forward and achieve what I believe is our common goal: to clean up contaminated sites, stop exposing innocent people to toxic chemicals, and making sure that all Americans have clean water, clean air.